Mini Ghost is a bite-sized candy bar of a game developed by unepic_Fran, who, as far as I can tell, is a single person. It serves as a prequel to the family-sized candy bar game Ghost 1.0. It promises a retro-style Metroidvania experience that you can finish in one sitting, and it does a decent job of that. Taking a 16x16 grid and turning it into something recognizable and original from scratch is no small feat. Mini Ghost pulls it off pretty well. Because it's a prequel, the main character Ghost already has a higher res model in Ghost 1.0. That means there wasn't too much work to be done, but honestly, scaling unique and full color characters down to sprites can still be a challenge. You have to decide which defining features can be cut while making sure the character still resembles the original. The developer did really well in this regard. If you compare the two models side by side, you can absolutely tell it's the same character. The enemies look great too. They're all clean and well realized, and they're all unique in some way or another. Even in more modern games with more sophisticated engines, developers can have a hard time creating a diverse cast of enemies. The music in this game is a solid okay. I never got tired of it and it wasn't boring, but I played this game only a few hours before recording this voiceover, and I cannot for the life of me remember the main theme. I can remember the music for the 4 boss areas, but that's about it. Alright, so we've covered the basics, let's move on to the story, which is even more basic. A corrupt cybersecurity businessman hacks into the computer system of another corporation and makes it go AWOL. That corporation contracts the corrupt security service, who charges a huge sum of money and dispatches a robot named Ghost to fix the problem. This is where the game begins. You play as Ghost, and the goal is to defeat 4 robots who are the protection for the computer system. These bots are located in the 4 corners of the map, so you need to make your way through the building, battling enemies as you go. As per the unspoken rules of Metroidvanias, there's a decently large map which are mostly free to explore. There are branching paths, and the screens are connected in some interesting ways. Nothing that hasn't been done before, but being able to drop down a pit into the screen below is always a nice touch. As far as abilities go, you have a jump and a humble blaster. You don't really gain any new abilities, which is kinda disappointing for a Metroidvania, but you can upgrade your existing stuff a little bit. The jump is the classic platforming jump. The blaster is about as interesting. You can either hold down the shoot button or button mash your way through. If you hold the button down, bullets come out at a consistent pace, but if you can press buttons quick enough, this is the way to go. You can pretty much turn the gun into an SMG and mow down enemies. If you purchase the optional damage upgrade, your enemies may as well be wet tissue. And I don't know if you've ever shot at wet tissue paper, but I haven't. I'd imagine it shreds the paper pretty quickly. Past this, the game hits some rough patches. The graphics and sound are pretty good, they nailed the old school look, but that doesn't make a game. Metroidvanias are known for their ability gating. Some paths are blocked off until you find a certain ability, after which you can access them. Usually this comes in the form of a double jump or a wall climb or something similar. The so-called ability gating in this game is simply key cards. There are 4 locked doors, and all you have to do is find the 4 cards and walk through. That's it. It really shouldn't even be called ability gating, it's just plain gating. There is a single item that can be considered an ability, night vision goggles. Half of the map is behind a few rooms that are completely dark, and you'll probably want these goggles to get through it. This is the only true ability gate in the game. I know it's a tiny game, so there isn't much to give you a ton of new abilities, but honestly, is it too much to ask for a double jump to reach a high cliff? And the keys themselves all open up areas that are more or less the exact same. They are 3x3 areas, and a boss enemy is in one of the 9 rooms. Each of these sections contain the exact same environment and music. Honestly, I'm really not sure what the point of locking these is. You don't need anything special to beat any of the bosses. It might be easier if you have a little more health or the item that extends your range of fire, but they are by no means necessary. You could make it through the entire game without anything but the starting kit. I honestly think the game might have been more interesting without the keycards at all. If 3 of the bosses were accessible from the beginning, you could make your own way through the map. Once you beat the 3rd, the final boss could unlock in a separate area. As it is, I honestly didn't know the final boss was the final boss. You get to it in the exact same way as the others, and it doesn't have a particularly striking arena. There are also secret areas in the map. I bring this up now because one of these secret areas is required to fight the final boss. The final baddie has a force field protecting it, and you need an attachment for the gun to bypass the shield. You get this ability from one of these secret areas. I know I said I wanted more ability gating, but this is the wrong way to do it. A secret area should be just that, secret and optional. Oh, did I mention the area is on the other side of the map? You can purchase an item that allows you to teleport back to the boss area, but I didn't have the wallet capacity to buy it at the time. Plus, you don't learn that you need this attachment until you've reached the very final room. So I prepared myself for a big fight, and once I walked in, I learned that I had to go somewhere else before I got to do it. Like I said before, this thing is on the exact opposite side of the map. You get an item early on that brings you back to the beginning, but that only gets you part of the way there. After you make the journey to get it, you have to go all the way back through some pretty difficult platforming sections, fighting enemies the whole way there. By the way, the only way you can heal yourself is by 1. Leveling up, which only gives you 1 health, 2. With an optional item, 2. Dying and restarting from the beginning of the map, or 3. Having these admittedly adorable healing bots fix you up. There aren't many of these bots, so you better be careful on your way back or you'll be at a serious disadvantage when you finally make it back to the boss. Thankfully, the game has a pretty nice save and load feature, so you can reload at the room before the boss if you die. In order to use this feature, you need to clear a room completely of enemies and then you can use it. Unfortunately, I didn't make use of this mechanic early on. I got all the way to the first boss, then died, and had to completely restart the game from the beginning. It's a small game, so it wasn't too much of a slog to get back, but it still sucked. After this, I obsessively saved after every room out of fear of restarting. I know this one was my own fault, but sometimes a guy just wants to complain. There's more complaining ahead, so I hope you're ready for it. In some rooms, there are these stupid enemies that pop out of the ground and shoot electricity around them. They don't pop up until a few seconds after entering the room, and there's no way for you to know where they are until they come up. There are no warning signs at all. So many times I would enter a room and start making my way through, then one of these pops up and deals damage that I didn't expect. Damage that isn't caused by a mistake from the player is always frustrating. It's made even worse by the fact that there are these broken vents that spew out hot steam. You can tell where the steam will come out because there were cracks in the vent, so you know where you'll have to wait and any damage you take is your own fault. So the developer knows the game should tell you where damage is going to come from, but just chose not to for some reason. Since I'm already talking about dumb enemies, these flying things with arms are completely irritating. They only take 1 hit to kill, so that's not my issue. The problem is that these things can fly into the walls, which you can't shoot through. Need I remind you, you can't save until you've cleared the room. Because of my earlier saving debacle, I didn't want to pass through any room without saving just in case. So I just had to sit there until these things decided to come out of the wall. If there's one thing I hate in a video game, it's having to wait for seemingly no reason. The flying enemies are made worse by the fact that you can't shoot upwards. There are so many enemies that would feel so much better to fight if you could just aim upwards and fire. Instead, you have to position yourself on their level, or worse, you wait until they get into firing range. This game was supposed to be a Metroidvania. In all fairness, it checks all the necessary boxes. Open map, locked areas you come back to, blah blah blah. But it doesn't feel like a Metroidvania. It feels more along the lines of Mega Man. There are robot bosses, the platforming and shooting feel similar, and the enemies all have their own little quirks. This game suffers so much from trying to fit into a certain genre when there's another one that would fit it so much better. It's so disappointing to see a game do this. It's like my teachers used to say. It has so much potential, but it's not doing anything with it. It does scratch the Metroidvania itch, kind of, and it's so short that the issues don't really have time to sink in. It's fun for what it is, but painful for what it's not. I'm gonna go take a bath and reconsider my life choices. I'll see you next Sunday, and don't forget to subscribe.